Emily's life looked flawless from the outside, the kind of dream every woman envied. 7 months pregnant, she lived in a luxurious mansion filled with chandeliers, marble floors, and picture frames that told a story of happiness. At every charity gala, her husband Ethan wrapped his arm around her waist, kissed her forehead for cameras, and whispered sweet nothings that made everyone believe he was the perfect husband. But those public smiles were masks hiding something much darker. Behind the locked doors of their lavish home, Emily moved carefully, choosing her words and steps as if walking through a minefield. Ethan's charm vanished the moment they were alone. His tone sharpened, his eyes grew cold, and his anger exploded over the smallest things, a misplaced cup, a late dinner, a wrong word. She learned to stay quiet, to apologize even when she wasn't wrong, because silence kept her and her baby safe. At night, when he finally slept, she would rest her trembling hands on her belly and whisper softly, "We'll be free one day, my love." It was her secret promise, a fragile thread of hope she clung to in a world that felt like a golden cage. Ethan's obsession with control deepened with each passing day. What began as gentle concern soon twisted into suffocating dominance. He demanded access to Emily's phone, scrolling through her messages under the guise of protecting her. Every contact was a potential threat in his eyes. When she spoke to friends, he accused her of gossiping. When she smiled at her doctor, he called it flirting. Eventually, he forbade her from attending prenatal appointments alone, claiming he didn't trust strangers touching his wife. Emily felt her world shrinking, each wall closing in a little more. The only light she had left was the secret line of communication with her estranged brother, Daniel, a paramedic who had always been her protector before Ethan drove them apart. She would text him late at night under the covers, assuring him she was fine even when she wasn't. But one evening, while returning from the kitchen, Emily froze as she heard Ethan whisper sweetly into his phone. The tone, the laughter. It wasn't for her. It was for another woman. Her chest tightened, tears threatening to fall, but she stayed silent. She pressed a hand to her belly and whispered, "Stay calm, baby. Mommy will protect you." The dinner began peacefully, or at least it seemed to. Ethan's parents had come over, and the table was set perfectly. Candles flickering, soft music playing, and Emily forcing herself to smile despite the tension in her chest. When she gently asked about his frequent late-night meetings, her voice barely above a whisper, Ethan's fork froze midair. His jaw tightened, eyes darkening with the quiet fury she'd learned to fear. "Are you accusing me of something?" he hissed. She tried to laugh it off, to ease the moment, but it was too late. In front of his stunned parents, Ethan's hand struck her across the face. The sound echoed through the room like thunder. His mother gasped, his father lowered his eyes in shame. No one spoke. They left quickly, pretending not to see the horror they had just witnessed. Shaking, Emily stumbled upstairs, her cheek burning and her heart breaking. She locked the bedroom door, tears streaming as she stuffed a few clothes and her ultrasound photo into a small bag. But before she could zip it, the door creaked open. Ethan stood there, eyes empty, voice eerily calm. "You'll never leave me," he whispered, stepping closer. And in that moment, Emily felt pure, bone-deep fear. It started with shouting, a storm of words flung like knives. Ethan's fury erupted as Emily pleaded for him to calm down, her hands trembling as she tried to explain she only wanted to talk. But reason didn't exist in his world anymore. His face twisted with rage, veins bulging as he shouted that she had destroyed everything. His image, his peace, his life. When Emily tried to walk away, his hand shot out, clamping around her throat. The suddenness of it stole her breath and voice at once. She clawed at his arms, her nails scraping against his skin, desperate to breathe. The room spun, her swollen belly pressed painfully between them as she tried to whisper one word, "Please," but only a strangled gasp escaped. Ethan's grip tightened, his face inches from hers, eyes filled with hate and madness. "You ruined my life," he screamed, shaking her as tears welled in his own eyes. Emily's vision dimmed, spots of light flickering at the edges. Her hands fell weakly to her sides as her body began to give out. The clock ticked mercilessly, 1 minute, 2, 3, 4. Then silence. Ethan's hands fell away as realization struck him like ice water. He stumbled back, staring at her limp body on the floor. Emily's eyes were open but lifeless, one hand resting over her stomach. For a fleeting moment, there was still a faint rhythm within, the fragile heartbeat of the baby that refused to stop. Ethan froze, his breath coming in ragged bursts as he stared at Emily's still body. Panic clawed at his chest. "No, no, no, no," he muttered, dropping to his knees. He splashed water on her face, slapped her cheeks lightly, begged her to open her eyes, but nothing happened. Her skin was pale, her lips slightly blue. For the first time, true fear gripped him. He pressed his ear against her chest, hearing nothing but the hollow thud of his own racing heart. Convinced she was gone, his panic twisted into cold calculation. He stumbled into the kitchen, grabbed a towel, and wiped his hands, then returned to carefully clean her neck where his fingerprints had bruised her skin. His mind raced. If the police saw those marks, they'd know. "Think, Ethan, think," he whispered frantically. Finally, he picked up his phone and dialed 911, forcing his voice to tremble. "My wife. She just fainted. She's not breathing," he cried, mastering the perfect tone of a desperate husband. Minutes later, flashing red and blue lights painted the driveway. Ethan stood by the door, hands shaking in rehearsed panic. But when the paramedics entered, one of them, Daniel, looked strangely familiar. Ethan's stomach churned. Where had he seen those eyes before? Daniel burst through the door, medical bag in hand, adrenaline already surging. But the moment his gaze fell on the woman lying motionless on the marble floor, the world seemed to stop. His breath caught in his throat. "Emily!" he whispered under his breath, almost too softly for anyone to hear. For a split second, everything around him disappeared, the flashing lights, the shouting, the chaos, and all he saw was his little sister, pale and broken. His hands trembled as he knelt beside her, but years of training forced his emotions back behind a mask of composure. He checked her neck, fingers brushing the dark bruises that told a story he didn't need to hear. "Pulse weak but present," he muttered to his partner, trying to steady his voice. "Let's move now." They fitted an oxygen mask over her face as Daniel fought to breathe through the panic clawing at his chest. His mind screamed questions, but his body moved with precision, monitoring her vitals, lifting her gently onto the stretcher, refusing to let grief take over. As they wheeled her out, Daniel finally turned to Ethan. Their eyes met, Daniel's filled with cold suspicion, Ethan's darting with guilt. "You'll ride separately," Daniel said firmly, his tone sharp as a blade. Ethan opened his mouth to protest, but Daniel's stare stopped him cold. "You've done enough already," Daniel muttered under his breath as the ambulance doors slammed shut. The siren wailed through the night as the ambulance sped down the empty streets, red lights flashing against Daniel's pale face. He hovered over Emily, his gloved hands pressing rhythmically on her chest. The heart monitor flickered weakly, a faint, erratic line that refused to steady. "Come on, Em. Don't do this to me," he whispered, his voice trembling as sweat rolled down his temples. His partner counted aloud, checking the fetal monitor strapped to Emily's belly. The baby's heartbeat fluttered faintly, fragile, like a candle in the wind. Daniel pushed harder, tears stinging his eyes as he performed CPR again and again. Each second felt like eternity, the pounding of his own heart drowning out the sound of the siren. "Stay with me," he begged, voice cracking. "You're not leaving me again." For a terrifying moment, the line on the monitor went flat, then a sharp beep broke through the silence. Emily's chest rose with a sudden, shallow breath. Daniel froze, eyes wide, then let out a shaky sob. "She's got a pulse," he shouted, trying to sound professional even as relief flooded every nerve in his body. Emily's eyelids fluttered weakly open. Her cracked lips moved, and Daniel leaned close to hear her faint whisper. "He tried to kill me." His body went rigid, a storm of fury and protectiveness igniting within him. He squeezed her hand gently and whispered, "I know, Em. I know. You're safe now." The ambulance screeched to a stop outside the hospital, and within seconds Emily was wheeled into the emergency bay. Doctors and nurses swarmed around her, their voices overlapping in rapid instructions. Daniel followed closely until the double doors closed in his face, forcing him to stop. He stood there, fists clenched, chest heaving, anger burning hotter with every second. He had seen victims of abuse before, but seeing his own sister like this shattered something inside him. He walked into a quiet corner and pulled out his phone, calling a trusted detective from his past rescue cases. His voice was low but filled with venom. "She needs police protection, now. Don't let her husband near her." Inside the hospital, Ethan continued his charade, pacing the hallway, crying loudly, his performance convincing to anyone who didn't know the truth. But when he saw Daniel step out of Emily's room, something clicked. That face, that name on the paramedic tag, Daniel. His wife's brother. Panic flickered in his eyes, though he tried to hide it. Hours later, Emily slowly opened her eyes, tears streaming as she saw Daniel sitting beside her. Between weak breaths, she told him everything, every slap, every threat, every night of fear. Daniel took her hand, his voice steady but cold. "He'll never hurt you again, Em. I swear it." Daniel spent the next few days in silence, his rage simmering beneath a mask of calm. He documented every mark on Emily's body, the bruises around her throat, the finger-shaped impressions on her arms, the faint scratches she had made while fighting for her life. Each photograph felt like a wound to his own heart, but he knew they were her shield now. He compiled the hospital's medical report, confirming the signs of strangulation, and handed everything discreetly to his detective friend. "No more chances," he said coldly. "Make sure he never walks free again." The final blow came from his own paramedic team. Their body camera footage captured Ethan pacing nervously, his fake distress unraveling as Daniel worked to save Emily. The footage also revealed the dark bruises on her neck and Daniel's firm refusal to let Ethan ride along, evidence strong enough to tear through Ethan's lies. When detectives confronted Ethan at his office, he laughed at first, confident he could manipulate his way out as always. But when they mentioned Daniel's name, and revealed that the paramedic who revived Emily was her brother, his expression faltered. Panic replaced arrogance. He bolted for the door, but two officers tackled him before he reached it. Within hours, the news spread everywhere. The man once celebrated as a devoted husband was now unmasked, a monster exposed, his reputation shattered beyond repair. Ethan's trial drew nationwide attention, the wealthy businessman turned would-be killer. Cameras flashed as he was led into the courtroom in handcuffs, his once confident demeanor replaced by hollow eyes and trembling hands. Emily sat at the witness stand, her posture fragile but her spirit unbroken. The defense tried to twist the story, painting the attack as an accident in a moment of stress, but Emily's voice cut through their lies like a blade. She described in haunting detail the 4 minutes she felt his hands around her throat, the burning pain, the fading light, and the desperate thought of her unborn child she was determined to protect. The room fell silent, even the judge visibly moved by her strength. Daniel sat nearby, his presence steady, a silent promise that she would never face fear alone again. When the verdict came, the courtroom held its breath, guilty on all counts, attempted murder and domestic abuse. The judge's voice was firm as he sentenced Ethan to 25 years in prison, declaring that no amount of wealth can buy redemption for cruelty. Weeks later, under soft morning light, Emily gave birth to a healthy baby girl. As she held her newborn in trembling arms, tears streamed down her face, tears of release, of gratitude, of rebirth. That tiny heartbeat she once feared to lose had become the very rhythm of her new life, the proof that even from horror, hope could bloom again. The world looked different now, brighter, calmer, alive. Months had passed since the trial, and Emily finally felt the weight lift from her chest. She walked slowly through the park, sunlight filtering through the trees, her baby's soft laughter echoing with the rustle of the wind. The stroller rolled gently over the path, and for the first time in years, she smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Every step felt like a quiet victory over the darkness that once consumed her. Daniel soon joined her, his uniform shirt slightly wrinkled after a long shift, but his face warm with pride. He slipped an arm around her shoulders, his voice low and full of emotion. "You both made it," he murmured. Emily glanced down at her daughter, who reached out a tiny hand toward the sunlight, and her eyes softened. She's the reason I'm still here, she whispered, her voice trembling but sure. In the distance, a faint police siren wailed. A sound that once filled her with terror but now only reminded her how far she'd come. Emily didn't flinch. She straightened, breathing deeply. The woman who had died that night was gone. In her place stood someone reborn, stronger, braver, free.